Thank to you all. Thank you very much, deeply, for the opportunity to serve you. Sherelle and I have enjoyed meeting with many of you through our work with ICBA, and I look forward to seeing you all again in Washington as we storm the Capitol steps next month to fight for ICBA's bold legislative and regulatory platform, Community Bank Focus 2020. It supports common sense reforms and greater economic opportunity for all Americans. I'm excited to see what the future has in store, and I'll continue playing my part to support ICBA's mission and the rich traditions that make community banking so special. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank ICBA's board of directors, those leadership bankers, and in particular, ICBA's talented staff, whose efforts, dedication, and passion I've carried with me into every meeting and every event across the country. This truly is a great organization. It's run by exceptional individuals, including ICBA's chairman-elect, Noah Wilcox. I know he'll do an unbelievable job representing our industry because he's a man on a mission. His vigor, his vision, and most importantly, his love for community banking were apparent to me, they're apparent to anybody the moment you meet Noah Wilcox. As I've gotten to know him better during the years we've been together, my respect and admiration for the work he's done in his community and on behalf of our industry has just continued to grow. I'm excited to serve with him for what promises to be a great year for our industry, the first of a new decade. I'd like to thank Noah for friendship, his support. Now I'd like for you to have a better chance to meet our 2020 chairman.
Good morning, Amanda. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Community banks, they're not just a financial institution. They're really the front porch of their community. They provide local choice, they're relationship focused, and they really care about the communities that they're in. So for community banks supported by ICBA to be able to tailor solutions for small businesses keeps these rural and suburban and urban communities healthy, vibrant, and their economies growing. I mean, as long as there's communities like Grand Rapids, Minnesota, Delano, Minnesota, Mound, Minnesota, there's always going to be a place for community banks. I think the core of community banking is relationships, and it's what I'm all about. And I think it is for all the community banks in the country. For me to live in a community where I know my customers, and you see them at the grocery store, you see them at school, you see them at church, it's not just a banking relationship. I mean, these are your friends, they're your family, and it's your community. And for me, that's what's important. So I grew up in this business as a fourth-generation community banker. I mean, this was the topic of conversation at the breakfast table, at lunch, at the dinner table. My family lived and breathed community banking. I was an art major in college. I was determined not to come back to the family business. Later on, I switched my major and got a degree in finance and management, and I wound up working for a large bank. And when I was able to come back and work on a project for the family bank, not intending to come back and stay, was when I understood the true role of a community bank in its community and the awesome power that it has to do good for its community. And I've been here ever since. Our voice is different. The message and how we celebrate success on Main Street is wickedly different than Wall Street. ICBA helps us do that job by advocating every day in Washington, D.C. collectively for the nation's 5,000 community banks, for our 50,000 locations, for the 1 in 3 counties that is only served by a community bank. That advocacy is unique and it's special to community banking. And without it, community banking's independence could truly be threatened. ICBA is looking far down the track, trying to understand what are the challenges that are going to face community banks in this country 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, being sure that they're in a place to continue to advocate, innovate, and educate for community banking so that they're able to remain independent, relevant, and competitive for generations to come. It's our honor, but it's also our duty to fight and defend it every single day. And that's what ICBA is doing, and I couldn't be more proud to be the next chairman of ICBA, to carry that mantle forward and to fight for the nation's community banking industry.
Please join me. Please join me in welcoming my friend, colleague, passionate defender of our industry, and our new ICBA Chairman, Noah Wilcox. Knock 'em dead, brother. You got it. Knock 'em dead.
Well, Prez, on behalf of ICBA and community bankers nationwide, thank you for serving this past year as ICBA Chairman, and for the example you set with your bold leadership in support of our industry, and your dedication, persistence, and willingness to go the extra mile, which truly made an impact. I look forward to following in your bold footsteps and extolling the virtues of community banks, the roots of which run deep in our nation and span coast to coast. Good morning. Well, you just had a little glimpse of the many wonderful people I know and the amazing place I call home, and I do say that even in the wintertime. But I have to say, Florida's weather is a pretty nice change of pace while we wait for spring to come back home. Grand Rapids, Minnesota. No, not Grand Rapids, Michigan. You might imagine I get that from time to time. And we may be known as the land of 10,000 lakes, which we certainly are. But Grand Rapids is special. Situated on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River, not far from her headwaters, Grand Rapids was built on the tradition of timber harvesting and paper mills, with sturdy loggers sending their timber down the river. To give you an idea of where we are on the map, we're 3 hours north of Minneapolis, hour and a half west of Duluth, or 2 hours south of the Canadian border. And on the drive from any of those directions, you'll see one thing that's not only synonymous with Grand Rapids and in the logo of Grand Rapids State Bank, but something that's special to me personally. Towering pines, many times for as far as the eye can see. And to truly flourish, those pines need to have deep roots. Well, I can tell you this. My roots in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and in community banking run 4 generations deep. It actually reminds me of a story. Years ago, when I took over leadership of Grand Rapids State Bank from my father, someone made a comment that really stuck with me over time. It's the first generation that plants the seed, the second generation that cultivates it, and the third generation that cuts it down. Now remember, I'm the 4th generation. He leaned into me and he said, "What are you going to do?" But being me, as some of you who know me might imagine, I didn't waste any time in responding back. I said, "I'm going to plant a forest." The gentleman clearly hadn't expected that response, but I promised myself right there that I was going to be the 4th generation of continued growth and expansion. And to this day, I have continued to cultivate that growth I started more than 20 years ago. I know I'm not alone in this philosophy. As community bankers, we're all stewards of our banks, our customers, and our communities. We're all planting some kind of forest in our own way, something bigger than ourselves. And just like the community bankers before us, and the community bankers, many in this room, who will eventually take the reins, we're one community doing good for all communities. And that's a wellspring of inspiration, pride, and honor for me. I'm Noah Wilcox, a proud 4th generation community banker and your humble volunteer chairman-elect of ICBA. Thank you. I'm the president, CEO, and chairman of Wilcox Bank Shares, our holding company, which owns 2 charters, Grand Rapids State Bank, which was founded in 1914, and Minnesota Lakes Bank, which came into being after an acquisition in 2014. I grew up around the business. As you heard in the video, community banking was the topic at breakfast and of course over those daily lunches in my grandmother's kitchen, where my father, uncle, and grandfather continued their work over my grandmother's homemade cooking, as my sister Sarah and I listened on. But you know how it goes. I had other ideas, and off to college I went to study the visual arts, pointing my compass in the opposite direction of the family business. But somewhere, a year and a half or two in, I took some time off to do some soul searching. I was wondering if I was on the right path, if this was right for me, and I made a decision to protect my creative outlets as a hobby. When I returned to class, I had transferred schools and switched my major to business and finance and business management, and business was really in my blood, and I was being energized by it. After I graduated, there was interest for me to come back to the family business, but instead I went to work for a big bank out of Minneapolis. I moved all around the country for 6 years or so, and I was loving the industry, but I could no longer tolerate or agree with the big bank business model. So my employment with that big bank ended, and for the second time in my adult life, I took some time to do some soul searching, to reflect and decide what I wanted to do. It was 1999 when I got a call from my uncle asking me if I was interested in taking a consulting job with the family bank to research and implement online banking and assist with our back office image strategy. Within days, I was feeling the community bank business model and its heartbeat inside my own. I didn't see it coming, but my roots truly came calling. And I suddenly understood why so many of our family of staff had been with our bank for 30, 40, and even 50 years. I saw the unique and powerful symbiotic relationship that a locally owned and managed community bank has with the communities that they serve. And I literally fell in love with the community bank business model, and I've been a proud community banker ever since. The more I became involved at the state and the national level, the more my active support and engagement fueled my passion for this amazing industry. We're here at ICBA Live, the biggest front porch in the country, talking about bold vision and clear focus. Well, this was my moment of clarity. This was a period in which I began to understand and share the vision of the generations that came before me. And I knew then it was my privilege, honor, and obligation to be a steady steward, not just for our family business, but for our community banking industry. I know many of you in the room feel the same way, but if you don't, I hope that my story will help you reflect on your own, and I hope it ignites a little passion and fire that you can kindle into a blaze. Every single person in this room is entrusted with a venerated obligation to carry on the tradition of relationship-based community banking that our forebears passed on to us. The community bank reputation, name, and integrity are ours and ours alone to protect and to promote. And that's why we're here today. In this moment, I am calling on you. I know a great many of you are highly involved in advocacy efforts. You know who you are. But there are some in the room, too, that think it might not be for them, or they don't know what to do. Or like one of my staff members said to me years ago, when I asked them to light up a particular senator's office by phone in the morning before even switching on their computer, what if the senator answers? I replied, they won't. But if they do, just remember, you pay their salary and they work for you. So I'm calling on every person in this room, whether you're a banker, a vendor, a guest, family member, director, spouse, whatever it is. Let's make this the real priority that it is and redouble our efforts to get more done in Washington for community banking. I was raised on a saying, you make it happen. My father was famous for saying this from as young as I can remember. It didn't matter if the matter at hand was positive or something less so. You make it happen. Well, community bankers, you make it happen. In the next year, I call on you to double the number of calls, emails, and Capitol Hill visits. And I'm not just talking about ICBA's Capital Summit. Let's double the number of op-eds in local papers nationwide and calls and comment letters to policymakers. And don't forget to engage on social media. How we engage and advocate for ourselves is how we define our success on Main Street. And nobody, and I mean nobody, can take that away from us. This is our history to write. Our voice will be heard, and it will be uncompromised and undiluted. And perhaps even more important, I ask you to implement a grassroots advocacy program in each of your banks, one that teaches and empowers your staff and their families to do the same. Think about it. These are the very same faces we depend on daily to represent our banks. Empower them to represent so much more, please. This is the greatest profession on earth. Go fight for it and be proud and be thankful for every day you're able to do so. It's really something easy to implement that is immensely powerful. ICBA has so many resources available to help us advocate on the behalf of the industry we love so much, so please don't recreate the wheel. And it's okay to ask for help. There's nothing, and I mean nothing, that the ICBA staff has not been asked before. And I'm happy to help too. This is why we do what we do. We're all in this together. This is a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family. And we all need to take care of one another for the collective benefit of the community banking space. We are all in this together. We're all part of the same strong root system that underpins the forest of community banking. We depend on one another, and that's how we thrive and flourish. And just as we depend on one another to move our vision forward for our legislative and regulatory platform, Community Focus 2020. Now is the time. 2020 is here, and we've provided the perfect vision and path forward for lawmakers to make communities across the nation stronger through community banking. We've shown what we can do in Washington, from tax and regulatory relief to a permanent community banking seat on the Federal Reserve to ensuring the Fed participation in real-time payments. Our work also continues this year to finish what we've started on reforming the Bank Secrecy Act, the Community Reinvestment Act, enacting a cannabis banking safe harbor, and of course, continuing to raise the curtain on credit unions, farm credit, and so much more. Advocacy success takes time, but we community bankers have shown time and again that we have the diligence and the patience to see our campaigns all the way through to the harvest. It's also why we need to continue fostering the next generation of community banking through innovation and succession planning. There are more seeds that need planting. We need to remain fluid in our innovation. Just like the waters in Minnesota's 10,000 lakes ebb and flow, we must be nimble and agile as we navigate to ensure our prosperous future. And we must identify and prepare our future leaders through Community Banker University, through ICBA's Lead Forward Summit, and through advocating for our industry. Let the coming generations see and know how truly bright the future of community banking is. I really can't imagine Grand Rapids or Delano with no Grand Rapids State Bank or Minnesota Lakes Bank. In fact, I had a customer recently say to me, "Thank you." When I asked her why she said thank you, she replied to me, "For all that you and Grand Rapids State Bank do for our community. I can't imagine our community without you and the bank." You all know these stories. These are your stories. As I close, I want to simply say thank you. I know my words fail to express my full debt of gratitude to my community banking family, but please know that I'm grateful with every fiber of my being. And thank you for the hard work each of you do in your communities. Thank you for your efforts locally and nationally, but most of all, thank you for entrusting the 90th chair of the Independent Community Bankers of America to me. With that gracious and humbling honor comes immense responsibility, and I will fight every damn day for you, your charters, and for community banking. Got little ears in here, sorry about that. I also want to recognize and thank several guests that Julie and I have joining us here today. Our daughters, Mackenzie, Abby, and Taylor. My parents, Kathy, and Steve and Vicki Wilcox, my brother Nick, my brother and sister-in-law Gary and Lori, I see you. We also have some directors and staff here. Steve and Amber and Sydney and Lacey Burgraff, Angie and Pat Haying, Becky and Pat Horgan, Don and Wendy Johnson, David and Leslie Krause, Jeff Lee, Christy Poling, Shelley Steer, Steve Welliver, and Matt Wilcox, no known relation. And last, but certainly not least, my trusty assistants, Carol and Heather. Thank you so much, each of you, for all of your love, for all of your support. I am forever grateful. I also want to thank the ICBA staff. Without their support and their daily dedication, none of this would be possible. And I also want to say thank you to the ICBM staff for all they do back in Minnesota for community banking and for all of their efforts for an amazing reception this past Monday. And I can't thank my wife, my best friend, and my soulmate enough. Julie, thank you. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. I couldn't do it without you, and I adore you, my love. Aside from being married to my best friend and carrying on my family's business in the fourth generation, as well as serving alongside the brightest minds and kindest souls in community banking, this will always be my highest professional and personal honor, that is humbling as it is significant. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the day and the remainder of yet another amazing ICBA Live. Do good and go shout community banking. This is your story, community bankers, but the greatest part is you get to author the next chapter, so believe in it. You wrote the intro, and the best is yet to come. It's my honor to serve, and it is my honor to stay true to my roots and carry on this most precious tradition until the next generation has sown the seeds that they have planted. Thank you. I share this great honor with the men and women who join me and have been called to serve on ICBA's executive committee. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce my team. This wonderful group of ICBA's leadership bankers have been elected by the board of directors to the 2020 executive committee. Like you, they've chosen a career in community banking and are deeply committed to ensuring the seeds planted long ago continue to take root in urban, suburban, and rural communities nationwide. It's planting season, and we are keen on planting a forest. Consolidated Holdings Chairman Jack Hardings, past Chairman Scott Heitkamp, past Chairman Tim Zimmerman, immediate past Chairman Preston Kennedy, Secretary Alice Frazier, Treasurer Greg Deckard, President and CEO Rebecca Romero Rainey, Vice Chairman Brad Bolton, Chairman-elect Bob Fisher, and me, Noah Wilcox, serving as your chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2020 Executive Committee.